Dave, and I'll hand it off to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it and hope that I can say something worthwhile today. The way this thing is set up, my camera is way up here, but the screen is down here, so I tend to keep looking at the screen. I wanted to talk just a little bit about how I got into what I got into here. And then I'd actually like to turn it over to for questions. The nice thing about questions on this channel is they can be about anything. And the nice thing for me is that if it's about something I don't know about, I can just say, I don't know. That's the thing about a YouTube channel where I answer questions is you don't see the ones that I don't know the answer to. So it's a little bit self-limiting. Let's see, we've got about, I'm looking in there at the room at HamCon in Vermont. Hello, Vermont.
Yep, they're just starting to come in.
Yeah, those who go for work all state spend much of their life yearning for Vermont. So it's either that or North Dakota that we're trying to get. So we'll see how it goes. Years ago, 2009, I bought a little motorcycle dirt bike because I wanted to see the mountains around here. Where we live in a very mountainous area, and the mountains go up to 14,000 feet, and the passes are up as high as 13,000 feet. And so I got one of those helmet-mounted GoPros and put my videos on YouTube, and I might get 80 views on a particularly good YouTube. But then I did one on the ham radio and noticed that the view count was about 10 times higher. I said, okay, I see the handwriting on the wall here. So I did still go high into the mountains on my motorcycle for 5 years, rode it up until I broke my arm really badly. And then after that, I sort of lost my confidence. And so I didn't ride it very much more. But I was asked by my church to teach a local open class on becoming a ham, which I did. I live in a very sparsely populated area. Western Colorado just really stretches out. The big city here is Grand Junction, about 80 miles north, and it's got all of 100,000 people. And the little town that's near me where I have my post office box has one stoplight. It's the only stoplight in the county. And it's, I think, could be replaced easily with the roundabout. So anyway, I was asked to teach this novice class and not novice, tech. Sorry, you can tell how old I am. And I did, and we created 4 new hams as a result. And of course, the only people who attended were those who were close by where the class was in Montrose. Well, the area served by the Montrose Amateur Radio Club goes all the way to just south of Grand Junction and all the way south to include Telluride and all the way to the Utah border and so on. It's an enormous area, many hundreds of square miles. And so I thought, well, why don't I do this? I'll try and make something that's halfway between in-person class and just studying the book. I'll do a video introduction for every section in the book, not chapter, but individual sections. And so slowly I cranked these out over a period of a couple months. Now, I'm sad to say that essentially nobody picked up on the videos here in the local area. 1 or 2 people did. However, I started getting emails from all over the country, people saying, hey, we like your videos. And So, okay, I mean, the book, the ARRL book is available. As far as I know, I'm still the only person who does videos on a section per section basis. I saw that someone has done them at the chapter level, which is a higher level than I do them. And so people started saying, when are you going to do general? When are you going to do extra? So I did general and I did extra. It took me nearly 2 years to do all the extras because those videos are much more in depth. I mean, they're not at an engineering level, but they do touch it from time to time. So I did those videos, and then when I had the training videos done, thought, what next? And a viewer suggested I do something called Ask Dave, where people can ask questions, get answers. And so I thought, okay, I'll do that. And so I've got about 650 of the Ask Dave videos. Since the beginning of the pandemic, I've been putting out a video a day. The idea being that for at least a few minutes a day, you can listen to something that doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic. Also been doing a live stream every week where primarily I chat with viewers and viewers ask questions and I try to answer the questions in real time if I can, or at least refer a person to where they can get further information. It has proven to be successful beyond my wildest dreams. I passed 100,000 subscribers late last year, which is a major milestone for YouTube. They send me a plaque. Wow. And so I keep going. I'm still doing one a day. I'm going to cut that down slowly here. I think first I'm going to stop doing videos on Sundays and then kind of work back from there. I actually do the videos in bunches. I sat down the other day and recorded 11 videos based on questions asked by people. And I have an assistant by the name of Callum Jakeman. He is a high school student, and he's one of these people that you explain it to him once and he's got it. And so he's doing all my editing. He does the editing, the titling, the references, checks for errors, and puts the videos up on YouTube and manages them as to when they'll appear and so on. This is good because it gives me blocks of time to either work on other videos or else go fly my airplane. I haven't been flying the airplane this year yet, really. It's just cold and snowy, but today's a beautiful day. Maybe someday, very soon, we can get back in the air. I'm trying to learn to become a sport pilot, fly small aircraft. So that's kind of the story of how I got into it. And the response has been really good. I was approached in January by the American Radio Relay League saying that Dr. Joel Hollis had asked to be retired from his The Doctor Is In column, and could I take it over? And they wanted to rename it to Ask Dave so that it would fit right in with my YouTube channel. And they wanted one to be kind of the extension of the other. And after some consideration, I agreed. And yes, they do pay me for that. The other thing that they wanted to do was to adopt my training videos as theirs. So they have them now. Now, one thing about the training videos, of course, they have to be updated every 4 years. We're looking at updating the technician videos this year. So one of the nice things about being on the inside of the league is that I can work directly with the person who's updating the book, so we can try and have those videos ready by the end of June. rather than my having to wait 2 or 3 months to get the book, look at it, do the comparisons, find the points that need to be changed, and so on. The videos are intended to be not a replacement for the book, but rather an introduction to the book. The book, even though it does explain the background of the questions, does just enough explanation to sort of advance the hobby a little bit. It doesn't just give the answers. And I don't either in the videos. I rarely discuss individual questions. Mostly I'm discussing the precursors to the text, or expanding the text a little bit and providing practical examples and stuff like that. There's a chapter in there, a section on having a QSO over the air, a contact. And so I demonstrate that, and that's what's doing. The videos have remained quite popular. My normal video sees 4,000, 8,000 views. Once in a while, I hit a viral one. I had a woman ask me about shortwave listening, SWL, and she got herself a little radio and said she didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, I'll make a video answering her question. Turns out that video went viral. It's my most popular video, and it's had over 250,000 views. And I'm surprised so many people are interested in it. I had another viral video when I answered the question, why 50 ohms? And, why don't we do 35 ohms? Why don't we do 100 ohms? And I mentioned a lot of the original engineers and scientists who worked in that area. And that became viral too, with I think over 100,000 views. And I kept asking my viewers on my live streams, what did I do right? I want to do more of this. They said, well, it was a good video. And I said, well, I hope all my videos are good videos. So.
Interrupt you for a second. That was actually, I think, how I found your website. I'd seen it somehow came up 50 ohms, why 50 ohms? Like, I've asked myself that too. Why 50 ohms? And it's one of those things you just take for granted. Okay, we have 75 ohm, TV cable. We have 300 ohm twin lead, and we have 50 ohm for everything ham. Why?
Yep.
Right? So it struck a chord.
Yeah, well, thank you. I had fun with the video, especially with the history part. Forgive my mouth here. I had a dental event last week. I pick up my new choppers next week. In the meantime, I'm toothless. Yeah, I also sometimes do videos that are not directly related to a question. I've got a stack of stuff here to review. The Chinese manufacturers have latched onto me, particularly Radiodity. And there was some discussion this morning about the UV5R. This radio right here is the GS5B. It is, if you look at it, the same radio. But if you look at the output on a spectrum analyzer, the harmonics are gone. They've fixed up the RF output section to get rid of all those harmonics. The UV5R, I have one. Everybody has one. And they do put out quite a bit of junk that can be interference for other UHF and VHF users. So take a look at the the GS5B or something like that. It's a nice radio, nice little radio. One of the radios that I do occasionally push is the let's see, it's the Anytone 878 UV, but that's an expensive radio, but it is DMR and it is a very capable FM radio. Most of the radios that I've reviewed, well, all of the digital radios that I've reviewed are DMR. You've got Yaesu with its C4FM, ICOM and Kenwood with their D-Star, and then Alinco and all the Chinese manufacturers do DMR. They're all digital. I don't like the sound quality of DMR as much as I do some of the others. And they all work. And the reason that the Chinese are doing DMR is twofold. One, they're going after a wider market than just amateur radio. They're going after the public service market, which is largely DMR or something very akin to it. And so they're trying to make their ham radios be sort of a, very small change away from this so that they can do the DMR on that.
Well, maybe dive into what DMR is. I mean, digital mobile radio, right?
Yes,
right?
Digital mobile radio. There are three, as I said, three major digital modes that are mutually incompatible. D-Star is an open one developed by the Japan Amateur Radio League for digital radio. It was picked up first by, I think, Kenwood, and then ICOM jumped on the bandwagon, and they both do D-Star. D-Star, all of these are digital modes that operate over a normal channel on FM. Actually, they use less space than a FM voice. D-Star, DMR, and C4FM are not FM modes. They're not putting this digital on top of an FM stream. These are actually digital radios that transmit bits. One of the nice things about DMR is that there's two channels and the time division multiplex between the two. And so you can actually have two conversations going on at the same time. And your repeater can pick up both of those channels, and they can be independent of each other. Now, one of the things about D-Star, C4FM, and DMR is that there's a big internet system behind each one of them. So your local repeater, or if you get something called a hotspot, which connects directly to the internet, you can use your radio to talk to the hotspot and be connected to what are called talk groups. I think D-Star calls them rooms. It's basically a party line, big party line. And it could have people on it in, Italy, wherever, who are on that particular party line. And there are hundreds of these rooms or talk groups. So D-Star and DMR, C4FM have become very popular because of this characteristic. You can talk around the world as a technician. You can do it either through the hotspot, which is the way most people do it, or you can do it, and these are readily available from DX Engineering and from online. This happens to be a deluxe one that they stuck my call on for me to review. They're a couple $100, which seems like a lot for a Raspberry Pi and a daughter board, but oh well. Now the question is, why don't we move toward one standard? DMR is standardized. It's a European standard. D-Star is standardized. It's a Japanese standard. which is one reason the Chinese won't do it, because if the Chinese do something, the Japanese won't, and vice versa. There's a long history there. But the market is not selecting one above the other. It tends to be selecting DMR just because of the sheer number of Chinese radios. Okay, so it's cheaper to get into. But there are groups of people, this tends to be geographic based, where you'll find lots of C4FM repeaters, and these are all connected to the internet. And you've got other groups, other areas that are DMR, other groups, other areas that are D-Star. And so what you need to do is find out what most people use locally and buy accordingly. The Chinese radios you can pay a lot of money for the Anytone D878UV3 plus. There might be another digit in there. They're always improving it slightly. And or just get a GD77 from Radiodity, which is a lot less expensive. And do DMR, or you can get the big manufacturers. I think most of them offer one FM only radio, and they'll offer one or two digital radios. Now, what do you do if you're a DMR guy and you want to talk to somebody who's D-Star? They have created room/talk groups that are cross-connected. So you can come into that talk group on DMR, or you can come into it as a room on D-Star, and you can cross-talk that way. And that seems to be the market solution right now. Now, it's almost a VHS versus beta. VHS captured the market, and then Sony came out with its technically superior beta, but never really got anywhere with it because VHS had already captured the market. Well, DMR, D-Star, and C4FM all came out kind of around the time and have their various aficionados. So they all work. I don't really care for the sound quality so much on DMR. There is a delay because you've got that 30 millisecond packet followed by 30 milliseconds of silence, followed by 30 milliseconds of more packets, and so on. So it's a little bit delayed. They're all a little bit delayed. The nice thing about these radios, like the UV5, let's see, no, not the UV5, or the Anytone radios, is that they'll store the entire database of every DMR operator in the world. And so when that person comes on the air, they'll present the information to you in the screen, the name, the location, things like that. So, these are what I would call digital extras that they have there. So lots of different things. So any more questions on DMR? Was that helpful?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Do you want another question on DMR?
Sure.
I noticed that the QST put out an article on digital New England activities, and one of the points was that they now has a D-Star option, which you can access DMR and the other digital modes without a radio. And I noticed that the link no longer works as far as a magazine is concerned, and I wondered if there was something that you knew about that maybe made it an incorrect idea or solution.
Well, let me just say this about that, to quote Richard Nixon. This is a hot spot. and you use your DMR radio and this is connected to the internet. Why do you need the radio in there? Well, technically, from a technical point of view, you don't. You could go straight to the internet. Well, the problem is DMR is amateur radio. And if you log into one of these places and you say something, you are transmitting out over repeaters somewhere in the world. Okay. And you need to have a license to do that. If you want to just have a talk group, use Facebook. But these are amateur radio. I've often thought that these digital radios need another power level in addition to their 5, 1, and 50 milliwatt. They need a 1 milliwatt power level because they're only going 3 feet to the connection to the internet. This does away with the need for a repeater. It gets you right into the backbone system, or you could do it via repeater. So, you know, there are people, and I have heard them, believe me, I get questions about them. Is such and such really amateur radio? And my response is, if it needs a license, it's amateur radio. Regardless of whether it's digital, analog, or whatever. I mean, my favorite activity is single sideband rag chewing. Okay. But for other people, they love FT8. FT8 is the most popular mode. And I think it's because many technically minded people tend to be a little bit more introverted. And the nice thing about FT8 is you don't have to talk over it. I did some experiments yesterday with Whisper. I put my radio on a 30-meter Whisper and left it on for several hours. Was amazed how far 5 watts will get you. Did that answer your question at all?
Indirectly, it's just that it's certainly the audio quality is far poorer using DudeStar, and I was able to find a copy of the program by going outside of the United States rather than using GitHub. And I just wondered what some of the politics were behind it, because usually QST is a pretty straight shooter when it comes to information in their magazine.
Yeah, if you are using any system, and this includes, for example, logging into a station that's halfway across the country and using it, you are causing amateur radio transmissions. And so you need a license for that. And that, I'm thinking, may have been part of the problem with this. I'm speculating, really. I'm going to say I don't know for some of these. Amateurs are a very inventive group of people, and sometimes some of the suggestions go somewhere, you know, like a packet radio or PSK31 or FT8 or something like that. And some of them don't go anywhere, like a capability propagated by a guy about, oh golly, 10, 15 years ago, where it's possible, if you look at on your waterfall, a single sideband signal, you'll find that the mid frequencies aren't really occupied very much. The 1 to 2 kilohertz. And so they built a little system that took the 2 to 3 kilohertz in and folded it back over on the 1 to 2 kilohertz. So they cut the bandwidth of a single sideband signal from 3 kilohertz to 2. And the league was all behind this, and they had all kinds of articles in QST. It never took off. Nothing ever happened to that. We still use the 3 kilohertz channel for a single sideband. And, you know, I get new hams. You see, I think I'll start on 10 meters. How do I put up an antenna for that? And my response is, I think you'd be better off starting on 40 meters. Let me tell you how to put a 40-meter antenna up. One thing I have done after getting the question that I know Anthony got a lot is what radio should I buy? Okay. So I put together at dcasler.com/reference, DCASLER/reference. I said, okay, here's a station of all new equipment that is not necessarily the cheapest, but if you get these items, you'll be happy with them. You'll have a station that'll stay with you for several years until, if you discover, for example, you're really into contesting, you might buy a radio that's more suited for contesting and so on. But here's something to start with. And I've got everything listed in there. It's built around the ICOM 7300, the MFJ 2010 antenna, which covers all of 20 and all of 40. And you get a little bit on 10 and 6 too, but 40 and 20 is kind of where the action is for the new ham. And you know, what cable to buy, what power supply to buy. I think I even go so far as to put up the part number at Home Depot for a ground rod, you know, and all of the different parts and pieces in there. And I call it a reference station. And it is just that. If you want to duplicate it 100%, it'll work and work really well. If, however, you already have an FT991A, then by all means use that, you know. But I do say this, that if I do a demonstration on YouTube, I'll be using the ICOM 7300. I went to, I actually took my old Yaesu FTDX 3000, put it up on the shelf, and bought a 7300, so that my station that I run here is actually the reference station. So I can do all the demonstrations and stuff on it. Now, this is a little different approach from Anthony's excellent, what I'd call encyclopedia approach, where he has a lot of information on a lot of radios. What you will find is if you take entry-level or near entry-level radios today, the FT991, the TS590G, or whatever it is, as the ICOM 7300, you're going to get about the same thing. I mean, there is no bad radio being sold these days, and they are not that much different from each other. They all have the same features, the same bells and whistles. They just do it a little bit differently. I know ICOM uses an endless menu system. Not ICOM, I mean Yaesu uses an endless menu system, whereas the ICOM 7300 has a little bit easier to use menu system. It took me a while to get used to, by the way. But in any event, so that's the approach I've taken. I say, here's the reference station, go look at it. It's a reference design. If you put these parts together, they'll work. But if you want to substitute a different antenna or say a PowerWorks power supply, fine, it'll still work. And yes, I do put Anderson power pole connectors right in there with the reference station. So any other questions on that? I have a couple email addresses that are important to the channel. One is hamradioanswers, all one word, @gmail.com, hamradioanswers@gmail.com. Or, and kind of what I'd prefer these days, is Ask Dave, no hyphen or anything, just Ask Dave at ARRL.org, not .net, but .org. askdave@arrl.org. And I got to tell you a little bit of something about the questions that I get. By far and away, most of the questions, I mean like 70%, are antenna related. People are very interested in antennas. I always cite 2 rules of antennas when I'm talking about antennas. Rule number 1 is that everything affects everything. And rule number 2 is that height matters. I've had a lot of people say, I want to run a wire along a fence line. I say, well, that's wonderful, but I don't think it's going to work very well. You need a little bit more height than that. I do have 3 different companies, magloop antennas. I have found that magloops outside at nominal altitude, like 10 feet, work about as well as a dipole. However, they're very high Q, so you only get a little narrow band that's right around the frequency you're using, so they're terrible for waterfalls. I also have, I think, 3 different receive-only loops that are great for waterfalls, but you don't transmit through them. You'll blow them up. So, but I get mostly antenna questions. The next big segment, probably 3/4 of the remainder, are about grounding. And they usually start out with, I've watched all your stuff on grounding, but my situation's different. And some almost, it's interesting, they act as though they need my permission in order to proceed with their grounding system. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a professional engineer. I'm an engineer, aerospace, but I never passed a professional engineering exam where I'm state certified. So I can't really do anything other than say, well, kind of best practice among hams is to do this. See if you can do that or come close. I'm setting up a telephone call with the league has just come out with the new grounding book, and I'm trying to remember the name of the person who did that. And it's a lot more strict than the last grounding book. And I want to talk to him about the evolution of grounding best practices in ham radio, because I think this latest book goes well beyond what most hams will do. And so we need a sort of best practice for hams without turning our homes into a commercial broadcast station. We're dealing with 100 watts and we're dealing with it intermittently. We're mostly interested in lightning protection. And as I always say, all bets are off if you've got a direct strike. My station has had a direct strike. I was laying down on the couch napping at the time. I think I scraped my head on the ceiling when I jumped off the couch. It was very loud. A guy across the street saw the lightning strike hit my 20-meter dipole, and it just vaporized it. There were the end insulators and the coax, and the coax, about a quarter or half wave down, the coax was literally blown out, and it did other damage too, most notably to the garage door opener, which is a strange thing to be affected by lightning, but we ended up having to just replace it. It also blew out a modem, my $350 Hayes smart modem, which the insurance company replaced with a $50 modem that did more. And now it's obsolete technology anyway. Let's see, any other questions on DMR, really anything? I'll try to answer them. This is supposed to be.
Can I ask a question about your reference station?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much I'm building my station based on your reference station. I've pretty much followed all your steps. Do you
Uh-huh.
use that as your regular station now, or do you have something else that you use mostly when you're
That
doing
is the station that I use. I was working yesterday with Whisper, and I used my ICOM 7300. I used the reference station power supply. Um, I did not use the reference station antenna because it doesn't work on 30, but otherwise it was the reference station. Yes, all the way.
Okay. My question, my other question is, and one of the other presentations I talked about it. Did you find that radios that have HF as well as VHF, they're doing too much? That maybe having separate HF and then separate VHF is a better way to go, rather than trying to do it all in one box.
Well, the box that does them all is sometimes referred to as DC to light because it covers such a wide range. Um, the boxes that have all of it actually have two radios under the cover. Okay. They share some circuits, they share the audio circuits and things like that. But basically that UHF, VHF stuff has to be created separately because when you get up into UHF and VHF frequencies, inductors start acting like capacitors and vice versa, and it gets a little weird. So they're often two separate things. That's why most of these radios will have two antenna attachments on the back, one for 2 meters and 70 centimeters and the other for HF through 6 meters. So if you get like the 991, which is a very popular radio, very nice radio from what I understand, I really had to try and weigh, do I want to do the 991 for the reference station or the 7300? And kind of looking at the two, I'm normally a Yaesu guy, but I went with the ICOM, and a lot of people use that rig and love it. If you get a radio like the 991 for UHF VHF, it will do the FM, the normal FM, but it will also do single sideband CW, FT8, all of those things on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Note that FM is usually almost exclusively vertically polarized, and that the so-called weak signal modes, meaning everything other than FM, is almost universally horizontally polarized. So depending on what you're going to do, you're going to need one or two antennas. The DC to light radios work. I mean, they just plain work. Like I said, it's real hard to buy a bad base rig these days. They're all very good. The ARRL expressed some reservations about the Alinco HF radio, which is really designed for a different market. It's designed for a market, mostly fishing boats. And fishing boats, what you need to do is be able to preset it and then use it. And you don't worry about anything else. You set it and use it, and that's it. So it has very few additional features. I think the thing that pushed me toward the ICOM radio is that most of the people I talked to had the ICOM radio. So this is a case where it's really popular, so therefore it becomes kind of the standard. Does that answer your question? Or did I skate all the way around it?
No, it does, and I agree with you. The ICOM for me was beneficial because of the larger screen, so it's better viewing and much easier to see.
There was a question asked during Anthony's presentation about a nearly blind ham. There is a program, you have to pay for it, but you can use it free for a while, called Win for ICOM, WIN, the number 4, and then ICOM. If you'll search on that, you'll find it. It connects to your 7300, and I think it also does the 7610. But you see on your screen every feature of the ICOM. So like all the memories, all the various menu settings, everything is on the screen. And it's got nice big dancing needles and everything like that. And so it's much bigger, plus you don't have to go hunting for things through menus. Now, one of the things to keep in mind was it will also do the waterfall if you want. It won't do it at the same time it does the other, but this can be a big help for controlling the radio. If you are, trying to run stations or something like that. And somebody just put up the link to an icom.va Victor Alpha 2, and it went away. So that can be used as a way to control the ICOM if you're having trouble with your eyesight. I do agree, I really like the screen on this. It does a real nice job with the waterfall, and you get the audio waterfall along with a oscilloscope type view of the audio, and it's very good for setting up your mic gain and your compression on that. So that's just one technique. Any other questions for Ask Dave today?
Anybody in house here? Or wrap up? Nope.
Yeah, I know we're.
Inside.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say nothing. Nothing here at the Hamfest. The folks in the audience don't have any questions at the moment.
Okay, well, let me do a little bit of a commercial for my channel. You can find what is the difference between mobile and portable. The answer is, if you are mobile, you can do it while driving. If you have to stop at a spot and set up a table, that's portable. If you are not driving but operating from a single spot, that's really more portable. I knew a guy who couldn't do ham radio at home, so he set it up to be able to do it from his car, and he'd go park in a park and do his ham radio from there. And it worked very well for him. The way he overcame the poor antennas was to stick an amplifier in there. It's a 500 watt amplifier.
Nobody coming in.
A Meritron
Take these away.
ALS 500M, and he sold it to me. He only wanted $200 for it. And I said, I'll be right over. And I picked up that amp. So that's my amp right now. My channel is youtube.com/Dave Casler, DAVECASLER, no spaces or anything. And that will take you to my channel homepage. And you can look at anything there you want. I encourage you to subscribe. Also encourage you to put a comment or something there. YouTube enjoys seeing engagement between the YouTuber and the YouTuber's audience. Those who wish to support my channel can go to dcasler.com/support. And I'm down now to just PayPal for a tip jar or a subscription tip jar, or Patreon. Patreon is pretty nice. We do put up a video a week on Patreon about a week early. So you can see videos a little bit earlier than other people do. Not that many people take advantage of it, but we're giving it a try. And you don't, and I've seen people do this, that if they have a question, they'll send me a tip, and then expect me to answer this impossible question. I had a guy send me a fairly substantial tip, and then he called me the next day, and it turns out he's responsible for the fire communication system in a 70-story structure being built in New York, 70 stories, and he's having some problems with it. And he turns to me, expects me to have the answer. I say, I don't have a 70-story anything. So I tried to help him out a little bit and kind of point him in the right direction. And I hope I helped him, but it was kind of crazy. So, you know, you don't need to send a tip to have a question answered. I try to take them all. And now I do pay taxes on all the money that I get, including the money from the league for the column and for the lease of the videos. You know, I've got to update the technician videos this year.
Did you have a question, Anthony?
No, it wasn't a question. It was just the ICOM software is from VA2 Fox Sierra Quebec. And in addition to being able to see all the screen settings, you can also use it to run multiple software programs at the same time. So you could run a logging program, FT8, N1MM, all at the same time with one serial port or one USB port.
Mhm.
He also makes one for the ICOM and for the Yaesu series. I'm sorry, for the Yaesu and the Elecraft series, in addition to the ICOM.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate that. Okay, we are getting toward the end of time,
Yeah.
and I know we need a little time for a transition. Any last questions? I don't see anybody in the room there who's obviously asleep.
Well, we are. Okay, yeah, come on here. The microphone has gone
Oh,
walking. So
You said that you're going to be doing some new updating the license exams. I know she changed the color of your shirt every time it's update to the video for technician or extra. I wonder if you want to maybe follow the Roy G. Biv, the resistor code coloring for the year, the last digit of the year. You're doing the updates.
well,
so we'll be coming up on what, red orange?
Yeah, exactly. Red orange.
So it'll be red orange for 2023, or red for 2022. I think that's
yeah, it's a technician this year, general next year, and extra the year after that. Updating these videos is a lot of work, and I'm going to get started, I hope, soon on this, updating these videos for
yeah, it's nice you get that opportunity to have work with the league and changing the book. That way, I guess you get the opportunity. Okay, what's different? What do I have to update? You know, that makes it easier than trying to read and figure it out. So
yeah, I know, because it can take.
Doesn't make it all that much easier. It's a lot of work trying to.
Yeah. So that's it then. I thank you all very much. 73 to everybody. I should play my outro music here. And we'll see you at the next HamFest.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave.
Okay, back to you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks so much. And for folks over in HamCon Room 1, we're finishing off HamCon. So if you want to switch over there, or live folks move over, there's some ham radio wanna be a millionaire quiz show. So thanks so much, Dave. It's been awesome. Anthony, the rest of you that might have been presenting that are still hanging on, I really appreciate it. Welcome to Vermont today. And take it easy. God bless. Thanks for helping out. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Ooh, I don't want to end the meeting yet. Okay. All right. What's that?